Okay, we are back, and it's June, which means it is Pride Month. I don't feel very prideful today. I just don't. Not this year. I just don't compared to previous years. Um, I'm gonna need to be in a better spot. Ugh, I hate this. Come here, you. Oh, good. But I figured we're in a point where we're in a point where basically we thought, when you think you got everything going for you and everything's okay, and then suddenly the rug gets pulled out from under you. And that's how I've been feeling, and maybe you have too. Maybe you have too. And if you have, maybe this little history lesson will give you some solace. It's got a very terrible beginning, but remember the end. The end is today. Okay? The end of this history lesson is today. As history does not end. History quite often rhymes, but it doesn't really end. So we're going to go way back in time, believe it or not, to World War II, because everything has to revolve around World War II and World War II German guy. So come here, you. I can actually take 3. So with World War II German guy, people were sent into camps, and they wore the pink triangle if they were gay. Okay, that's what it was. Of course, other people wore different things. Now, lesbians, however, they got to wear a black triangle. Just to let y'all know. And there were multiple other variations on that, including the 6-pointed star that represented the Jewish people. But if you were a Jew and say you were if you were gay and Jewish, okay, let's just say you were that, part of your 6-point would be pink. Like half of it would be the pink, with half of the Jewish star of David would be pink, and the other half would be the yellow. Okay, so they could even mix colors like that. And so what happened was, of course, people were no longer alive in there through various methods, and horrifying methods that we're not even going to go into detail about. But the point was that even this passed, but sadly not yet for the gay community, because they got let out of the camps, just like the Jewish population and the political dissidents and all of them. But unlike everybody else, the gay people went from here to jail. They traded one camp for another. I better thank him. Oh, poo-poo. I just used a long cooldown on accident. I need to move that button. If this plus down is going to be my drink, I'm going to have to move that button. I'm sorry. I just wasted a long cooldown. But they traded one camp for the other. From Auschwitz to a jail cell. And meanwhile in the USA, they were still thrown in jail for being gay. But now we're going to go into the write-up that I had, because I never included anything from World War II from that era. I don't know why I never did, but I didn't. Yeah. Now, so please note, before I even begin here, that parts of this have been heavily redacted in order to protect your sensitivities. So we begin our history trek in the 1950s, well before the Stonewall incident, which was Cooper's Donut 3.0. Became a household name. Well, but Stonewall was a household name, but it was a whole different reason. It wasn't because of the Stonewall Inn. Okay? But during that era, we saw the specter of communism. Ooh, such a horrible specter. That specter was such a specter, we had to fight that specter. Oh, we had to. Oh my goodness, we had to, everybody. It was such a terrible thing. And by fight it, I mean anything that isn't redacted is a communist. The LGBT community at the time was not redacted, and so was actually branded vulnerable by the United States State Department. Yes, I kid you not. I'm going to go for 3 here. Here, you. Just see what happens. That positioning is key. There we go. Now, they were branded vulnerable by the United States State Department on the grounds that they were susceptible to blackmail plots. Now, this was the time. Remember, it was post-World War II. Gays were still thrown in jail all over the place. There were no rights. Okay, let's keep Holy Shield up. We may have to use a bubble cooldown, which is okay, because I've got band-aids ready if I need to. Oh, no, I'll be okay. No, they were susceptible to blackmail plots. Now, let's remember the time frame. Okay? You were thrown in jail for being gay. You lost your job for being gay. You lost your apartment for being gay. You lost this for being gay and that for being gay. It didn't pay to be gay. And this was the time frame. Considering the LGBT community faced being fired, thrown in jail for being outed, you know what? Blackmail would likely work. A blackmail plot would likely work, now wouldn't it? Let's just be honest. You know, we won't throw you in jail. We'll help you if you do this. Uh-huh. And also, as a natural consequence, when you got put into a prison, it was not going to be resort prison. Not at all. They didn't let you in resort prison. So, yeah, blackmail works on that kind of a group. When the government makes something, they're willing to throw people into a cage over. And that's what they did. Come here, yous. Alright, we're going to have to do the tango again. Did I get them right? Yes, I did. No. So, of course, the more logical option to this is just simply not to throw people into a cage and question the decisions you've made. Yeah, we're not having that today. It wouldn't give a scapegoat for communism. Somebody had to be communist. Someone had to be thrown into a cage over this, just to show that we're, working and everything. But wait, it gets even better. During this time frame, you're never alone as a member of the community. And I didn't mean that other gay people would come around you. Well, they would, but that's a whole other deal. You were stalked by the same government that made and or kept this being gay illegal. There was a good chance the FBI at least knew who you were. J. Edgar Hoover may have read the file himself while possibly wearing articles of women's clothing. The post office certainly knew and kept your name on a naughty list. And no, I am not making this up. Now, but you had to hang out like a gay bar, thank goodness. But speaking of that, the whole hangout stuff, they were illegal too. They were routinely raided. Lots of drinking while gay things happened. They were drinking while gay raids. Here, you. and they were drinking while gay arrests made. The mafia ran the bars because who's going to be more afraid of? Who's going to be more afraid than? Who's going to elicit more fear than the mafia, right? But it gave sanctuary. The mafia ran the bars, so take that for what you want. Okay, take it as you want. There's now remember all of this, okay? Remember all of this information because it's coming back in quiz form in a minute and in riot form. Now, all of this over-the-top tension. And yeah, it was over the top. Whew. I mean, imagine this. And all of the fear going on. So let's go to sometime in May 1959. And these ones are just remembered mainly because of the fact that there's not a definite date and records are really shoddy from this point in time, okay? But this is Cooper's Donut 1.0. 2 police officers walk into a Cooper's Donut. I am not making this up. And ask for identification. This is Cooper's Donut in Los Angeles, California, right by 2 gay bars. Oh my. I didn't know this would have some relevance to today, too. I'm so sorry, y'all. Now, but just like today, this riot was only confined to a very small space. It's a very small area, okay? So, now, this was being Cooper's Donut in Los Angeles. We were right by 2 gay bars. This was considered normal. It was perfectly legal for the time to go and arrest gay people like this, for wanting a donut while gay, or whatever it was. So 2 drag queens, okay, automatically, because they're what was it, impersonating the other gender or something like that. That was actually a crime to do that. 2 male nice men and a 5th male who was apparently just there looking for a good time were arrested. One of the arrested started the protest because there was simply no way, in redacted, 5 people were going to fit inside the back of a police car. Now, nobody knows who protested. Nobody knows. Considering the time frame, it may be for the best. It may have been for the best that nothing was ever revealed. Okay? Now, nobody was going to name names at this point because you had to be a better community to yourselves back then. And it's a life lesson that needs learned in today's world. We need to be better to each other and to our communities. The onlookers, who were more than likely members of the LGBT community themselves, they agreed with them. 5 people can't fit in there, felt like the police were in the wrong, and immediately entered the riot jeep from Grand Theft Auto. Coffee, donuts, and assorted trash were thrown at police until they fled. The riot grew, with both protesters and celebrants. The area was cordoned off by the police, and several arrests were made. Now we're going to fast forward. There wasn't much information about Cooper Donut 1.0 because, again, the records are destroyed somehow. There's a lot of times this happens. It was a fire, the paper records got destroyed from old city halls. Now we're going to fast forward to August 1966 at Compton's Cafeteria. Are you ready for Cooper's 2? It was in the Tenderloin district of San Francisco. No, I'm not making this up. We don't know the exact day. Again, that's probably the main reason why we're not doing Compton's Cafeteria Day instead of Stonewall Day, right? Now, the police records no longer exist either, so many people who were trans hung out at this place, okay? Many of them were nice ladies because trans people, just like the rest of the LGBT population, weren't really considered redacted. Being the T part of that community means you were even less than less of a redacted. So the cafeteria staff routinely called the police, as they did on this day. After trying to arrest a trans woman, she threw, and I'm assuming it's going to be hot coffee, right at the cop. Down, left, up, left A, right trigger, right button, left trigger, left button. Here we go again. Cooper's Donut 2.0 has started at Compton's cafeteria. The plate glass window got smashed. Everything a trans woman could find to throw at a police officer got thrown. A police car was damaged, and a newsstand was burned to the ground. The next day, more came to demonstrate because Compton's put their foot down and said no gay people allowed. You were allowed to do that too, by the way. Oops. I need my close one. There you are. Now, so that, in turn, led to down, left, up, left A, RT, RB, LT, LB. Here we go with Cooper's Donut 2.1. The new plate glass window at Compton's got smashed again. Poor Compton's. But as a side note, they never recovered from this, and they closed in 1972. So, after all of this tension, 2.1 full-on riots in the state of California, and you would think you'd pause, and you would reflect for a minute, and think about, what's been leading to all this, and by, rethink how other people are treated, and by rethink, I mean New York City saying, hold my beer. I'm having a drink of coffee first. And by hold my beer, I mean in the early morning of June 28th, 1969, nearly 3 years after... I'm just going to do a single pull. Somehow I'm off sync with the respawns. Nearly 3 years after Compton's cafeteria, which was Cooper's Donut 2.0 and 2.1, and 10 years after Cooper's Donut 1.0, the New York City Police Department raided this bar called the Stonewall Inn. Again, because they were guilty of drinking while gay. Again. Now, I'm not sure which number raid it was. Okay? I don't know. That's probably been lost to history. This wasn't their first rodeo at being raided. But the LGBT community said this would be the last time. Now, the reports vary on the woman who started the riot simply by saying, why don't you guys do something? She was thrown into a paddy wagon and down, left, up, left, A, RT, RB, LT, LB. I think they're doing something. I can't see with this silly tree in the way. I'm sorry. The police lost control of the situation and Cooper's Donut 3.0 was on. I don't care. My inventory's full. Don't want that anyway. The handcuffed people got away, and so did the police. Remember that they're still handcuffed for later. The police had beer cans thrown at them, and the reason why I say that is because I don't have a record of when they were uncuffed, okay? So, as far as I know, they're still cuffed. The police had beer cans thrown at them, which prompted the police to back them all up to a pile of bricks. Meanwhile, 10 police, including 2 female police officers, because you had to have them there to do gender testing. Yes, this was real. This was real. Have barricaded themselves, a folk singer named Dan von Ronk, Village Voice reporter Howard Smith, and some of the arrested people. Still arrested for their own protection inside the Stonewall. We're going to have more on all of that later. But first, there we go. Let's get back to the angry mob that was pushed into a pile of bricks. And now, as anyone can tell you, the last thing you want is an angry mob to The last thing you want an angry mob to do. There we go. I was trying to say it right. I'm trying to read it verbatim, okay? So please forgive me. The last thing you want an angry mob to do is come across a pile of bricks. Bricks got thrown at the stone wall because someone accused them of not doing their mafia payout to the police to leave them alone. So bricks got thrown into the bar because the LGBT community had had enough. In addition to bricks, garbage cans, garbage, regular and fiery variety. So just remember that one too. Bottles, rocks, and even a parking meter, wow, was uprooted to use as a battering ram against the stone wall itself. Remember from earlier? There's people in there. They were there for their own protection. Yeah. The door flew open, according to Wikipedia. It's entry on this, okay? Oh, there's two right there. Come here. There we go. The door flew open, according to Wikipedia, and those 10 police officers were facing the angry mob again. Weapons were pulled, and the gay men involved just didn't seem to care. Howard Smith, remember him from earlier? He put a wrench in his pocket. Put a wrench in his pants, not knowing if he needed to use it against the rioters or the police for his own safety. Then there was fire. Somebody poured lighter fluid onto the bar, and then they lit it. The police tried to put it out using a fire hose, but there was no pressure. Which means now, this angry mob turned into an angry mob at a wet t-shirt contest. The police were humiliated. Utterly humiliated. And decided they can't be humiliated. But first, we're going to take a little field trip down the road. As soon as I had a little drink of coffee, and we're heading over to the Women's House of Detention, where a second riot took place in support of, and this was in support of Stonewall. There were women and transmasculine people that were setting fire to everything and throwing them into the street. This prison was really weirdly designed, okay? The chance of gay rights echoed through the halls. Was this enough? Well, in comes the Tactical Patrol Force, the TPF, in full riot garb and in phalanx formation. This can be countered. It's a move called an oblique order, and it counters the phalanx very well, but this was in the late 1960s. People just weren't able to look this kind of stuff up. A gentleman named Bob Kohler, who was born and raised in Queens, I'm not making that up, sums it up this way about the TPF. Quote, "I had been in enough riots to know the fun was over." I'm going to stop right here because I have to read this verbatim, okay? Quote, "I had been in enough riots to know the fun was over. The cops were totally humiliated. This never, ever happened. They were angrier than I guess they had ever been because everybody else had rioted. But the fairies were not supposed to riot. No group had ever forced cops to retreat before, so the anger was just enormous. I mean, they wanted to kill." Quote, sorry for using that word, but it was a verbatim quote. Please forgive me. And let's get rolling here. Come here. Got to do the dance to get them in position right. Okay. Multiple fights erupted with what were then termed as transvestites. Okay, I'm sorry. Again, it likely didn't matter if you were transgender or not. This was the 1960s. Anybody could be guilty of being a man in a dress. Okay, that's what you're guilty of at the time. It would have fit the bill. Meanwhile, the rest of the group were in a chorus line singing a parody of Tarara Bundie. It didn't go very well. The chorus line had the redacted beat out of them. This kept going until 4 a.m. New York time. Still the 28th. Because remember, it started very early in the morning on the 28th. Remember that for later, too. Marsha P. Johnson came to the Stonewall at around 2 a.m. after the start of the riots, but was noted is being with Zazu Nova and Jackie Harmona at the pushback against the police. Cars were now overturned as the rioters tried to block off Christopher Street. People were confused by all the the police were confused by all the twisting alleyways, but not the gay people. They knew the area, the stone, so they could and get through it real easy. The stone wall was trashed and partly burnt, and this is the end of night 1. Yes, there is a Cooper's Donut 3.1. Oh dear, that's 3. Okay, move back here. Now, stay. Let's do the dance and line you up right. There we go. The newspapers, they did it again. These are smarter mobs. We got this. Now, let's get that set up. The newspapers covered night 1. It must have been a stop the presses moment, right? Because Redacted said this must have been the fault of those evil students for a democratic society, or those evil Black Panthers, or by an evil gay police officer who got miffed at his boyfriend. I am not making this up. Uh-oh. I'll have to get that scroll. Hold on a minute. How am I going to do this? What can I let go of here? Oh, I have an owl. There you go. I'm living off the land. Sorry, y'all. And then I will start again with you. There we go. Now, all day, and it's still June 28th, by the way, because the riot happened in the early a.m. The bar was frequented. It had graffiti sprayed all over it. Drag power, support gay power, legalize gay bars were noted by Wikipedia, along with several not-so-pleasant remarks about the police. I'm going to try to keep things very classy. That evening, still June 28th, remember that, thousands came to the Stonewall, swarming the streets. This time, rioters got to buses and cars, surrounding them and making them admit to either being gay or supporting the rioters. Marsha Johnson climbed the street lamp and bashed a heavy bag into a police car, smashing the windows. Now, the police were there, of course, arresting who they could because rioting is illegal. You know, they still tried. they tried. But the crowd actually recaptured the arrested as they were being arrested. So, sorry about your luck there. Fires were set, rioting happened again, and things calmed down by 4 a.m. again. So, after all of this, Howard Smith, remember him? And Lucian Truscott wrote in the Village Voice in the Wednesday edition an article so vile that I cannot even quote it without heavy redaction. Ooh, a critical hit. Well, down left, up left, A, R, T, R, B, L, T, L, B, an angry mob came down, threatened to burn down the Village Voice, and Cooper's Donut 3.2 begins. Stores were looted. A few arrests took place, and somewhere between 500 and 1,000 people were there. It only lasted an hour, but this time the LGBT community was simply sick of being a punching bag. Post-Stonewall, we have the start of the decriminalizing of the LGBT community. But of course, Redacted and the police didn't like anyone but Redacted having rights, so it took some time and the horrifying impaling... I don't want to say unaliving. Impaling removal from life by impaling of Diego Vinales, whose impaling is a direct result of a police raid on a gay bar. And did I mention he was impaled? You know, did I mention he was impaled? My goodness. And we know Diego was impaled. And he died while impaled. He is no longer alive after his impaling, because that image of his impaling was plastered all over the New York Daily News. June 28, 1970 was then called Christopher Street Liberation Day by demonstrators in New York City, Los Angeles, and Chicago, which eventually morphs into an entire Pride Month. Sorry about the stop there. And thus begins a march to Redacted. For today's news in Warcraft, this is Turkeytentia. I wish you a great day and great gaming. Goodbye, everybody. Remember your history. It quite often rhymes.